Well, hello there. We're looking at another bit of orchestration, this time Debussy. And again, a sort of lesson in separation, really. So I'm going to play the excerpt, and this is basically from a YouTube vid anyway, so it's not that helpful for a reduction, this particular one. You'll see why in a minute. So our thing will start pretty soon. And actually it's just before that bit that we get to it. So this is another analysis from Sevsay's Cambridge Guide to Orchestration. So if you've got that book, it's analysis number 44 or score number 44, Debussy Le Maire, movement 1, bar 64. So I'll take this back a little bit. Again, I'll make the score available as well to people on Dropbox. So it's from this Au Mouvement. And that's it. So I played it a couple of times, so we'll have a look at it, which hopefully it will be interesting, and I will go through basically what Sevsay says, and also we'll divide the orchestration into little sections of a few bars, and this is the sort of thing that would be useful to do really as students or learners, practitioners, to have a look. Now, the first thing is that, you know, Debussy strings like this are very, very rare in film music because, of course, they're sight reading, and trying to get an ensemble to play like that, it would be ridiculous. Of course, with Debussy, people have had 100 years to get it under their fingers, so it's a known piece in the repertoire. So a huge word of caution before we kind of do this as application, but the thing is that it has various points which I think are interesting. So the various things as it deals with sort of foreground, middle ground, background, and also various aspects of melody, which is a little bit more amorphous than just, you know, straightforward melody, accompaniment, bass line, that sort of thing. There are lots of sort of interweaving lines, and of course this is a part of the impressionistic age that Debussy was writing in, and the sort of music that he liked writing. So we'll sort of take it apart a little bit and dissect it. So if I go back here, we've got points. Avoids thickness by separation of, or basically unmixed, contrasting colours, never overfilling registers. There's a little bit of overlapping. If one section is heavy with lots of voices, the others don't tend to be. Sort of an example of that is the strings in the last 4 bars are hugely sort of thick, but the winds are quite transparent, with mostly unison. Modest overlapping is okay. So you know, those last 4 bars here, we can kind of see that if I go in a little bit, and of course it's difficult with a score like this to sort of see what's going on, which is why I have the benefit of, you know, if you print out this PDF, then you'll be able to sort of follow it. But basically, we've got various winds here. So you'll see that, for example, those, and I've written them all in the same pitch, all in C at this point. So we've got clarinets and oboe together. And even when the flutes join, just for a little bit of a change of colour, and also when the cor anglais joins as well, the flutes are also at the same pitch as the clarinets and the oboes. The only instrument that is doing some sort of octave doubling is the cor, which is just playing the oboe part an octave lower. But that's what Sevsay, I think, means by transparency, is that there's nothing else to sort of get in the way. We don't have a situation where we've got that going on and there's no interlocking, there's no sort of odd combinations of things. So I think that's what he means by transparency, and that's in opposition to this, where we've got this going on. So sort of finger tremolo or trills, and then real tremolo, which is sort of picking out various notes. Even that, although it's quite harmonic, there's still little bits of unison. So you'll notice that the second violin's B section, the violas, are playing exactly the same note, but just slightly differently. Like that. Whereas the trills that we have in the upper violins, so that's violin 2, but A, violin 1B, 1 and 1As, we've got this. You'll also notice that there are various little nice swapping type sort of effects as well. So between the violin 1B and violin 2A, they're just swapping notes, so that you get that sort of nice wall of sound. So that's what they mean by that, but I'm sort of leaping ahead a little bit too much, so we can go back to the beginning. So the first 3 bars I've just called, or he calls it, sort of the broad idea at the beginning. Sorry that it keeps moving. Unfortunately, it's just the way Sibelius works, the way I've got it set up, I'm afraid. So it keeps sort of moving of its own accord. I can't help that. Here we've got our flute melody. I don't think that's doubled anywhere else in the orchestra. No, it's not. So we've just got this on its own. Let's just hear it in isolation. And even that is in sort of 2 little parts. We've got this first little bit, and then this second melodic idea, which is where other things sort of join in, basically. So that melody is shadowed by the oboe. So you'll see that it's in unison, but there's a little bit of shadowing. So it plays the same notes occasionally, but not always. So there it diverges away, but then it comes back together, but then diverges away, and then comes back together. And it's not playing a harmonic roll or anything. It is still a melodic roll, but it's just thickening up textures a little bit. Then with that, we've also got the cor anglais, which is just playing the oboe 2 an octave lower. So both of those combined. So this is without the clarinets. I'll just do the first thing. Hopefully you'll see that. Yeah. So, and notice that the cor anglais does not go down to a B flat there, because he wants that unison there for a specific reason. It's the root note, and also there's a lot of other things going on harmonically, so he doesn't want to interfere with overlapping at that particular point. So sometimes there is a little bit of overlaps, sometimes there's not. We then have a other sort of function where we have mixed articulation here, and we have a sort of pedal and harmonic roll here. So let's just do this harmonic roll. Notice they're dissonant. Okay, and I won't go on. So when it's played with the cor anglais, just on this, like that. And then, of course, with the melody. It's quite a nice way of doing this. So then we've got the harmony extended a little bit lower than the clarinet, but just in one horn part, just the third horn. Notice there's no bassoon at that point as well, possibly because the horn and the clarinets tend to blend better in that regard when it's really quiet like this. Then when the other horns come in here, we've got a little bit of so we've got a little bit of interlocking and we've got a bit of stacking going on, but basically we've got the top note shared with the horn 1 and that clarinet. Then we've got the clarinet 2 playing the middle note, and then the horn 2 playing that note. Then they're joined completely in unison at that point. So there's one little note that's not. What else is playing this B? Well, we've also got an interesting sort of harp part here. Nice to have something which is not glissando all the time, isn't it? So we've got little pulsation of C flats. Interestingly, I'm wondering why it's not C flat and then B natural. But anyway, we have a little sort of pulsation going on. We've then got a C flat harmonic, which will sound at that note as well, but obviously lower in the strings. So we've got that sort of interesting pulsation going on, which is literally just doubling in unison, pretty much. Yeah, absolutely in unison, this horn 3 part, which extended that harmony lower than the clarinet. Really special colour, and it changes slightly when it goes into piano. We've then got basically an upper pedal of those C's, C flats, which are also going on in violin 1. So that's that roll. So it's a pedal function along with this as well. And adds a little bit of energy. And then it changes role just at the very, very end of bar 66. So what's going on with the violas and also violin 2s and the violas? Well, basically we have here, it's doubling the cor anglais, the clarinet 2, an octave above, but it's in pizzicato. We've also got another pizzicato. So we'll see that it's a little offbeat oscillation. Yeah, it basically adds a little bit of the movement part. So here, there we go, with a little bit of sort of light harmony, basically. So altogether, that's what we've got. And we'll see that the join is made in the third bar, this bar 66, where the cellos come in with the horns. So we've got a harmonic roll here. So it's slightly sort of harmonized, bit of harmonic roll. Like that, sort of, you know, all interlocked, all sort of very considered. So there's a little bit of interesting bit here where we've got, you know, this cello, which lies between, you know, those notes. So it's, in fact, it's just below. Ba-dee-doom. Ba-da-dum. But again, it's separated by the different sort of timbre, because that's pizzicato and that's arco. And also it's on the cello as well, sort of sings quite nicely. With horns sort of doubling that. Almost doubles the clarinet, but not quite, as I said before. So then we have one bar of this sort of transitional roll, which Sevsay says is stronger polyphonically than melody-dominated homophony, which is just melody and accompaniment and a bass line. So we've got 6 differing lines with limited harmonic elements. So we've got this sort of resolution B flat. We've then got an inner part, or 2 inner parts, going in the clarinets, which is also doubled on the horn 3, so that one doubles the clarinet 2. So here. Then we've got the B flat, which is actually doubling a little bit of this, and a little bit like a sort of Wagnerian dissipation of sound. It doesn't go for the whole of the bar. It lasts up until this point, and then it takes over this roll, almost as if he's sort of picking out what are the most salient bits of the melody that I need to hear at any one time. The B flat, then this, then this as well. So together, combined, just the clarinets, and I'll do the B flats as well, we have this interesting sound harmony. Yeah. And what else is happening? Well, we've also got this melody, which is in a very strong register and different enough from the violins, because they're separated hugely by, that B flat is massively high, B flat 6, B flat 5, and then we've got in the 4th octave F4. But interestingly enough, this combined with the harmony is very, very close to the melody as well. But it's still there. So if you imagine that F4, it's just below that B flat. So actually, it's kind of okay. It's not really that in the way. Let's just listen to it. Yep. And let's listen to it. So bear in mind that F is still there. Let's just play it again. Yeah, so it is actually separated out, so that the other instruments are not quite interfering with it. There's at least a tone beneath that and everything else. That's a really, really lovely type of sound. We've got one little bit of overlap where the unison violins at this point just combine with that F. And also, interestingly enough, that is the high point of the crescendo. At that point, that's where it's crescendo 2, sort of this F. And then it sort of dissipates the energy. We've then got a bass with no doubling elsewhere, which is apparently a sort of normal thing for Debussy, which again is what Sevsay calls transparency in the bass line. So you've got just the second desk of cellos and one whole section of double basses, just playing the bass line. And interestingly enough, we've even got a further sort of little bit, so that is an octave, but then it's unison, and they're playing together. So even that as well. So you can see there's a long gap between the bass line and anything else. In fact, I think the lowest other note is this one. So in the top of the stave of the bass of the cello in that case. So it's still quite separated. There's nothing in that sort of huge gap. So this this sort of area, that's why I'm putting the thing, this sort of area there, there's nothing going on. So again, it's interesting that there are 6 different lines, but they're all different colours, with a limited amount of mixed colour as well, which is mostly clarinets and horns in the harmonic sphere. We've got melody, which is not in any brass. We've got also melody, which is in strings. We've got a resolution, which is in wind, but in that locale, that sort of area. And of course also we've got that little B flat which takes over from the B flat here. It's just one instance, one quaver, where we don't have a B flat at that point. Yes, and notice how the cellos really bite through very sort of strongly because they're in a sort of a very good register. So the next section is all about sort of independent groups and colours. And the first thing to note is this sort of fifth type of sound, typical of pianistic work, like that. And we've also got the clarinets, which are an octave lower than that. We've also got the cor anglais, which is playing an octave lower than the clarinet 1. Remember, it tends to have that sort of octave doubling role. And then he also says that the oboes just come in for a little bit of colour variation. Yeah, just to give it a little bit of weight, but notice that they're in unison with those clarinets, so they just colour the clarinet sound slightly. So melodic idea in fifths assigned to woodwind. Oh, hello. Nowhere else, typical for Impressionism, oscillating figuration as well. So we'll notice that that's not doubled anywhere in different families. Yes, I think this is another interesting one. Look at that bass note on the tuba. That's it. There's no other bass, really. There's a little bit of that pizzicato, but again, it's a completely different timbre and adds pulsation. So again, a sort of very transparent bass line as well. So we've dealt with that. We've then got strings, which are in this sort of rich and active textures, one basic macro colour. So in other words, all of that combined is this. In fact, you could even argue that the macro colour is without any of the pizzicato at all, and it's just this upper bit. Whoops. I did a silly thing there. Ah, here we go. Like that. Just for that little bar. So the micro colours are these individual little bits here. So we've got a sort of octave, slightly awkward to play bit. It's not easy necessarily to play. Certainly that one as well. That's going to require finger positions, shifting and that sort of thing. We've also got fifths as well. Again, quite awkward to play. And the same here. So either requiring string crossing or fourth extensions. And then other sort of little shifts going on as well. Debussy not necessarily known for the ease with which something can be played, but it's certainly possible and doable with practice. Then the other little bit of microcolour is this sort of little bass line, bum 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 bum, sort of oscillation pattern with another offbeat pizz, which is the bass. Like that. Again, it gives it sort of energy, which it wouldn't otherwise have. So then we've got all sorts of trill effects, which are going on. And you'll notice that they're all in fifths, fourths, that sort of thing. So we've got this sort of thing. So we've got bar 69 to 71 is a progression from this previous bar. 4 differing ideas with 4 different colour treatments as well. So we've got this sort of swirling gesture, semi-mixed flute and oboe. In other words, that is an octave doubling at that point, but otherwise everything else is in unison. So oboes and the flute and the piccolo, well, oboes and the flute, sorry. Piccolo's an octave higher, and then that's an octave lower. But we've got this little swirling gesture. And it's just repeated. We've then got what else has anything to do with that? Well, nothing really. So then we've got a melodic element, which is not mixed with anybody else. So this is the horns. So it's sort of melodic element, and then we've got a harmonic and bass element, which is supported by just harps. So again, it's chords and the bass, which is just the lowest sounding note. I don't think anything else is doing that. Nope. Yeah, really interesting type of sound, isn't it? Sort of bassoon 1 and 2, but then supported, or bassoon 2 and 3 in fact, and then supported with 2 harps as well. It's sort of rather extraordinary sort of sound. Don't forget also the harps add a little bit of weight to the sforzando trill effect. So we've then got here our sort of fourth element. So we've had this one, we've had the harmonic and bass element, we've had the melodic element, and then the fourth one is this trill effect, which goes all the way through the orchestra in register. So we've got the trill effects here, then we've got a sort of middle bit, but also with pizzicato. And also don't forget that we've got this and also an octave lower as well. So actually there are sort of 3 little bits to it, differentiating each of those beats basically. And then to add weight to the initial attack, we've got the harps. And then I think maybe just to add a little bit of weight to the bass, that's why the bassoons are there a little bit. Really, really extraordinary sort of sound. And again, a little sort of modular bit there. Then we got 1 bar of a sort of contrast in the sense that there are no swirling winds. We've then got the melodic element, which is now shifted from just horns to the bassoons having a melodic role with the horns, which is just this little bit. Which then does that. We've then got a little bit of harmony, which is coming in the trombones. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, sort of presumably bass trombone, which is sort of basically now where this static register is, having a supporting harmonic role with the strings. Yeah, so it goes from 1 note to 2, then to 3. And also they're consordini, so they're mixed with this idea. I'm going to not do the bass yet. Like that. And then we've got the bass, which is all the cellos, but now with pizzicato bass as well. Nowhere else. Yeah, and you can see how that supports the harmonic element as well. So this is it without any of the melodic element. Like that. I think it's because I've written the roll harmonic, so it now starts playing harmony, which is a bit silly. But there we go. So then we're into the final section, which we dealt with right at the very, very beginning, where we've got 6 ideas, but mostly unmixed. And I think the idea behind that is because if you've got 6 ideas, you cannot mix them too much, because otherwise it'll just sound a mess. So we got the trills and trems, which are still really as an idea from '68. You know, they hadn't had that roll before. That had a little bit of a pizzicato and a pedal roll. Then it was all their sort of, you know, twiddly bits basically. And we've got trills and trems in violins and violas. And we'll see that, as I pointed out here, 73, you can see clearly that violin 2B and violin 1A playing in octaves, and then violin 1B and violin 2A are playing in unison as well. So we've got that sort of nice wall of sound, and as I said before, the violas are then just linking with those violin 2s by playing the same thing. So the upper strings have this nice little wall of sound. like that. So that's idea one. We've then got a second idea with the another rising line. So this time an ascending arpeggiated line with harps. So that's sort of da-dee-da-dum, that sort of idea. So that's the second idea, and that's with the harps. Don't think it's with anything else. Nope. So this is the second colour. And of course it's differentiated by rhythm as much as anything else as well, because it's moving at a duple rhythm or duplet rhythm rather than in a compound time. We've then got the bass line. Is anything else playing the bass line? No, it isn't. So again, a sort of opaque bass, unmixed. And again, a slow-moving bass, which is not replicated anywhere else. So that's idea 3. We've then got the melodic element, which is no doubling at all in the F trumpets. Trumpets in F, by the way, so high trumpets, with con sordini, but all of them as well, A3. With a quite languid sort of rhythmic element as well. So we've got sort of sometimes in compound time, sometimes the duplets, and then sometimes that sort of, 3/4 in 6/8 type sort of function as well. So that's the melodic element. We've then got this fifth element, which are the pedal dyads unmixed in tones. They wouldn't be played like that in the horns. They'd just be softly articulating things but sustaining it as well at the same time. But notice again a different articulation that's gone in with that. And then the final one is what we did before, which is all of this sort of swirly fifths. So we've got that sort of really interesting wall of sound in that last 4 bars. So it's a really good example of, how to orchestrate polyphony by separating out sounds, not mixing the layers too much as well. And this is what he says, avoids thickness by separation, selecting contrasting colours, never overfilling the registers. Modest overlapping is okay. Woodwind are above trumpets, which are above horns. So there are 3 different layers of register as well, and the strings play a sort of unifying role. But bar 67, we have 5 layers of different colours that didn't overlap it, apart from the horn 1, which was violin 1, the flute, oboe, cor anglais, the cellos, the clarinets and the horns, and the cellos and basses. That was the bass roll. But I've pointed all of these out. And then the final thing, the final sort of bit to bear in mind are the slight differences in dynamics, piano, pianissimo, that sort of thing. So what does he say about it? Determines the fore, the middle, or the background. In other words, what needs to come forward. It's like a sort of mixing engineer, basically, Debussy. So bar 64 to 65, the flute is piano, not PP, so that it cuts through. And it really does cut through because they're very similar register. So you need it to be a little bit louder as well, but it's in a good register for the flute as well. Bar 67, everybody has mezzo forte, but not in the bass. Violin 1 is more audible because it's in the highest register. So that was this bit here where, we've got sort of mezzo forte at that point as well. I'm not sure why I wrote but not in the bass. That is also mezzo forte. So then 69 to 71 horns, MF strings are SF, Z, P, and PP and dim. So again, a sort of slightly different type of sound because that's the main melodic idea. So that's a foreground thing. That's why they're a lot louder, actually, mezzo forte with piano. So that's really going to sort of cut through. But because of the wind, they go from piano to, let's say, a mezzo forte, then back down again to support. So we'll see that everything is very carefully considered. Obviously easier in a concert hall than a studio environment, which we'll go back to. But I think it's good to get a bit of background in the classical rep to then go into the film to then sort of work out why, Herb Spencer and Arthur Morton and various others, Al Woodbury sort of did various things, Angela Morley as well, with John Williams's music. So, and again, Debussy often assigns a colour to a certain motif or gesture or idea. Woodwind are doing the swirling stuff. The horn and trumpets tend to take melodic roles, occasional harmonic roles, and then strings are just sort of doing a supporting role pretty much all the way through. I don't think really there's any melodic element apart from that bar. That's it, which is quite unusual. There are some cellos taking a melodic element at the beginning, but otherwise their role is not that. And then some overlapping is necessary to create milder contrasts, and also I think in the little transitionary bars where you go from one idea to another idea, is that you bring in an aspect of the second idea into the first idea, like we do here. Aspect of this has become there. That was the sort of thing that Nadia Boulanger taught my old teacher, who taught it to me as well. So an interesting one. So I hope you found that interesting as much as I did. That's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 bars of Debussy, and it takes that long to really go through absolutely everything. It takes me that long anyway. But I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll look at more stuff next time I see you. But for now, it's all bye from me. Bye bye.